Joining me is the political journalist and self-proclaimed Moe Marxist, Grace Blakeley, seasoned broadcaster and political titan, Alan Bolton, and the Conservative MP for Hitchin and Harpenden, Bim Afolomi. Folks, welcome. Good to see you. Let's talk about that story that we've been investigating tonight, the Rwanda policy. Priti Patel's new policy to take illegal migrants crossing, fly them to Rwanda. So we've seen this interesting drop in numbers, probably far too early to be able to diagnose whether or not this policy is working or it's just the weather. The crucial question is, will it work? Bim?
Well, it may do. And I think it
may?
Has a good... Well,
just may?
Well,
it's a government policy.
It has a good chance of contributing significantly to fewer people crossing the channel, because what it's designed to do is to take people who have come through safe third countries, for example, France, though not always necessarily France, and process them and bring them to Rwanda. I think that is a similar, it's been done by famously anti-refugee bodies such as the UN Refugee Agency, Denmark, various countries have worked with Rwanda in order to do this. I think it's got a good chance of working, but I think it's very important to be honest and say this is one thing, this is one aspect to it. There is a global, particularly a European problem of dealing with significantly increased numbers of people moving around the Mediterranean, these people smugglers. So this isn't the silver bullet, but hopefully it can be part of a better solution.
The way that this has been designed just does suggest that it wasn't even intended to work. You've got private jets supposed to be flying these refugees out there. It's just extraordinarily inefficient. And you have to question why the government is doing it. It's not designed to work. It's clearly designed to stoke up nationalism, to create a kind of enemy out there that the government can kind of protect and defend people from. And who's going to notice that they haven't had a wage increase in 10 years or that public services are decaying if Priti Patel is shouting at the top of her lungs, look at that migrant who's coming to take your job. I'm going to deport them to Rwanda.
On the other hand, if it turns out that this week-long with no crossings is extended, and it has, just the mere idea of announcing it has worked as a deterrent, that will be a result all round, because that problem of small boats will have gone away. I think
no one gets to go to Rwanda.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as people have to move, people will move. We're seeing this in Ukraine, we've seen it in Afghanistan, Syria, places in the world where we have intervened. People move. You cannot stop that. You need to make it safe.
Grace, you're correct that people will move, but the question is, why should they move through safe third countries to the UK? And that is something that we have to deal with.
I mean, I'm with Grace. I mean, people have looked at Australia and this idea, and I've read mixed reports as to whether it works. All I'm saying, if it does work, I think it will be a result for the government. If it doesn't work and they actually have to start sending people to Rwanda, I think they're going to be massive problems. They're going to be the practical problems you talk about. But there is an inherent contradiction. On the one hand, Priti Patel and the Prime Minister say Rwanda is a great place, we're helping these people, human rights is respected, it's going to work. And yet, they're saying being sent to Rwanda is a massive deterrent because you don't want to go there.
And they're also accepting refugees from Rwanda. It's allegedly a safe country.
That's a really important point. But this is why you're incorrect. It can be a deterrent because the people coming, as I've said already twice, it can be a deterrent because the people are not always looking for any safe country, which is the whole point of a asylum system, is that they are particularly wanting to come to the UK. If it's made clear that you cannot come to the UK, but you can go to a safe country somewhere else, a lot of people say, you know what, I'm not interested.
If it's safe, then why have we been accepting refugees from Rwanda? We have recently accepted refugees from Rwanda, people claiming political asylum, people coming over from Rwanda to this country because it is not safe for them to live there.
Well, there are many different types of asylum seeker, whether they be families, individuals, people who have political asylum. Not every asylum seeker is the same.
But if you've got a beef with France for not accepting these people...
I didn't say I have beef with them. I was just...
Well, you just said, why didn't they settle there, which sounds like... It
wasn't to do with France. I'm saying that
you should have your beef with France and the safe countries they've come through. To go to another continent and introduce another country which is questionable just seems to me to be... offshoring our own problem and our own society's problem.
It's not offshoring our own problem. As I said, the UN, in 2019, right, the UN Refugee Agency moved people from Libya to Rwanda. Rwanda has...
I think those experiences in both the UN and Denmark have actually gone wrong in Rwanda. I think that's fact.
There's a huge amount that's gone wrong in Rwanda because Rwanda hosts hundreds of thousands of refugees from conflicts that, like those in the Congo, where you've got lots of people living in incredibly unsafe conditions. And this really does highlight the point, I think, that the vast majority of refugees live in countries in poor parts of the world. And we're here, you know, often having been involved in conflicts in those places in the world saying, oh, no, we can't possibly accept any more people, when the vast majority of these people who've been displaced by conflicts that we've been involved in are living in poverty and destitution in other poor countries. And that's making that problem worse.
There's a couple of separate things. It's not about, oh, you only take a certain number of asylum seekers because we said we'll only accept a certain number of people. It's about a fairness question of people who take the right routes to come to this country, the legal routes,
which largely don't exist,
and others who choose to choose to claim asylum where they're often
you're not choosing to do that. You are running away from a desperate situation.
Grace, I'm not talking about any particular. I'm making the broader point that because of the system, and as I say, the global system of how asylum works, I think needs a looking at.
Okay.
But let me finish this point. If there are people who are claiming asylum who are actually economic migrants, which sometimes occurs, then I think it's important, and we have a right as a country to make sure we maintain our border.
I don't think that is an unreasonable.
I don't think that's an unreasonable position.
Yeah, but it's only in the minority cases with the boat people. But there is also this argument going on in the right of your party at the moment, saying actually, government's point system is going to result in not cutting back on the rate of immigration into this country, which may give opportunities to people like Nigel Farage. But furthermore, there are people saying if the government's policy is it wants immigrants, why not take these people who've had the bravery and the initiative to cross the channel, who are young, many of whom are well qualified? Surely they're just the sort of workers we need.
They're young, well qualified.
So that was a fascinating debate. That is opening up a brand new one, though, Adam, and we could spend an hour talking about this one.
We were enjoying that.
I only asked one question, which is, will it work? I then made a cup of tea and I just come back.
I'm sorry
but look, we've got to move on because we've got two other things to talk about. We'll come back to that when they're desperate. I just want to tell you where the British public is on this. So, latest opinion poll, 2,337 adults interviewed, 32% agree with the policy, 26% don't agree, 42% don't know. So I think it's safe to say the jury's still out. It certainly is around this table. Let's talk about something else. And this is prison guards, instructed today by Dominic Raab, the Justice Secretary, not to call prisoners residents or clients anymore. Quite a lot of prisons were doing that, apparently, and they worry that political correct language is damaging public confidence in the criminal justice system. Dominic Raab wants them to be called prisoners instead. Grace, what should we call prisoners?
Well, I think this is an interesting point, actually, because the use of words like clients, for example, speaks to the marketisation of our public services. And you see this across public services. People are talked of as clients and consumers rather than citizens, i.e. the people who are, you know, supposed to be receiving these public services because they are...
You'd call prisoners citizens?
Sorry?
You'd call prisoners citizens?
Well, they are citizens,
You wouldn't call them prisoners?
Well, I think the way that we talk about people, specifically, and the reason that we obviously have these words that we use that try and kind of marketise or stigmatise people is because it matters how you talk about people. If you're just saying, oh, you are a bad person, you have no hope of reform because your identity is a prisoner, how are you supposed to rehabilitate people?
Yeah. Well, look, Bim, perhaps you could make the argument for the government. I suspect you'll think it's a desperately good idea because Dominic Raab thinks so. If I could put the point, though, this is expressed by some prisoners. There are prison governors out there who like to call their prisoners by their first names, and they reciprocate. They call the governors by their first names. And their argument is it normalises the business of being in prison, which makes it easier to rehabilitate them back in the community.
Look, I think this is a difficult one. There are a couple of things here. The first is I think we've got to trust prison governors on the ground. So, you know, broadly speaking, obviously you've got to have guidelines and overall rules, but I think that if they're prison governors who feel that it works for them and their rehabilitation rates are high and they don't have violence in prison, they can get their drug rates down and they do certain things, then I think we should allow them to do those things. But on the flip side, and I think this is the broader principle, going to prison is meant to be a deterrent and it's meant to be a punishment. But it is also rehabilitation. And I think that what we've got to do is make sure we get that balance right. I frankly don't think that... I find it quite hard to get excited about whether you call them, citizens as you want, or,
well, the Justice Secretary
or prisoners.
Getting excited about it.
Well, I suspect it's because the media got excited about it today, and he had to come up with an answer. But
all right, let's bring on Adam. Our fault.
Well, you do wonder if Dominic Raab's got something better to do. I mean, honestly, I really don't think it matters very much. I do think there are a lot of problems in the prison system. This whole balance between punishment and reform. I don't think it's going to make a difference. But in his defence, I would say prisoners. I would think the term inmates would probably be the best thing, but prisoners are not clients of the prison service because the client of the prison service is the Crown and Her Majesty the Queen to punish people. People have already had their rights taken away, so the notion that they're clients and that therefore they should have a direct say in how they are served, I think is not the issue. Whether And I think there should be a lot of efforts put into reform. I mean, just giving an example, I know someone works in the prison service. Big success in the prison service is the use of screens in prison cells, because it means that the prisoners can be told what's been going on every day. It means that they can do education at a relatively low cost, and it's working. And yet you can see people writing, "Good Lord, world's gone mad, prisoners have got TV screens in their studios." Yeah. And you just have to work it out.
These things are always just a little bit more complicated than perhaps the media make out, Bim. I'll give you that much. I want to move on to our final topic of the day, which happens to be my own personal favourite as well, though it's been a feisty panel so far. Let's see where we get this one. So, a French insurance company called Alan has got a policy called transparent pay structure. And what it means is everybody gets to be told what everyone else gets paid. Everyone knows what everyone else gets paid. The company say it's a straightforward culture where everyone is on the same page. So, Adam, should we all know our colleagues' pay?
Well, my get-out on how much you paid has always been, well, it's a contract between me and my employer, and if they want to reveal it, it's up to them. So I would be hoisted on this one by this French thing. Generally, I don't agree in singling out groups. I mean, I have sympathy for our BBC colleagues who, because it's a public service, we know how much they're paid, whereas in...
That was forced in the public domain a few years ago, wasn't it?
My position is it should be all or nothing. And that I wouldn't have any problem if we had the Swedish system, where basically everyone's tax returns every year are on public record. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, Ben, we all know how much you're paid. You're an MP. It's declared, about 81 grand, isn't it?
It is. It is declared. And look, two places I've generally worked are the City of London before I became a politician and in Parliament. In the city, the bonus culture meant there was a huge amount of secrecy about what every single person got paid. And I can see how certain people see there are problems with that sort of thing. But on the flip side, I think it's difficult in a company to mean that every single person knows what everybody else gets paid.
Because we're almost out of time. I'm really sorry. I'd love Grace's communitarian
I think that we all should know what everyone earns, just FYI.
We just covered money, religion and politics.
Yes, they should be unionised.
I'm in charge. I have to make another cup of tea. I've just got enough time left to tell you about our social media roundup. First, here is the most searched for thing on Google in the UK today. It is Ben Stokes, confirmed today as England's new Test captain. Second, Liam Byrne, after the investigation found the Labour MP has bullied a former member of staff. Third, Jaffa Cakes, as McVitie's launched a white chocolate version of the biscuit side cakes. Well, that sounds not for me. The top trending topic is on Twitter is Ed Balls, because it's Ed Balls Day. As people mark the 11th anniversary of the day, the former Labour MP accidentally tweeted his own name. And take a quick look at this, getting a lot of views online today. Spanish cyclist Eduardo Prades crashed after celebrating what he thought was a stage win in the Tour of Hellas. Sadly, he actually came second. Someone passed him 2 minutes earlier. OK,